Good evening, friends. If you remember back in video number 29, a friend of mine had dropped off some old vintage gear, and I thought today we'd just have a look at this Kenwood TS 520. It's an amateur HF rig, covers 10 through 80 meters. This is the 520 plain, which is one of the first models made. Start serial number 55XXXX. So this radio was probably made in the late 70s. The Kenwood 520s were produced somewhere between 1972 and 1979. I'm not sure exactly what the production date of this one was. We can find a nice E-chip in there that's got a date code that'll get us close. Okay, so the 520 was actually the first HF rig I ever started off with as a novice. I picked it up, I loved the radio, I enjoyed it. I never connected the microphone to it for the first 6 months, and all I used on it was CW. And I had a wonderful time with it. Very easy radio to use, a good audio quality on single sideband, and they have a very great receiver. These are hybrid rigs. What that means is that the radio is fully solid state, all but the amplifier section. The PA uses two tubes, 6146Bs, and it has a driver tube. So there's 3 tubes in this unit. So let's get a closer look at it and see what's going on with it. When I first powered the radio up, it did receive, and it received quite well. Now it doesn't receive anything, and there is no transmit. So we'll check it out and see what's going on. Okay, so I got the radio on 14.250. I got the IFR connected, and if you remember the IFR, we just repaired it, and you can see in the background the spectrum analyzer is working, and it's been running for about 12 hours and it's still no problems at all whatsoever on it. It's doing a great job now. So I turn the volume up, we're hearing nothing. Just nothing coming out. And I'll even inject a single, so you can hear that it does work. Cut the volume down on the IFR, and we'll listen to see if we hear anything. Tune back and forth just in case the VFO is off. And nothing. No receive whatsoever. Alright, let's check the transmitter. So we're connected to a dummy load. I have the radio in the upper sideband. We got the meter switch on IP, and the heater switch is on. And I got the carrier up at about 7. So we'll flip the send switch and see if we show any current. And as you see, the current is at 0. Okay. You have to make sure when you get these old radios, back here on the back, you have a switch, it's SG. You have to make sure it's on the on position. And what this for, if you're going to run a transverter over this radio, say a 6 meter transverter, you would turn this to the off position, and this will turn the power down so low that it's running off the pre-drivers without using the amplifier stage. So another thing I wanted to point out on this radio, you can look around and you can see See, the screw is rusty. That screw there is rusty. You can see this white around here. I'll disconnect the SO239 and you can see where this was white. That was corrosion. I took a little brass bristle brush and cleaned that off. But the radio shows signs of moisture. You can see the rust there on the handle mount. It looks like most of it wipes off. But if you look around the front bezel, you can see all this whitish stuff. That's nothing but oxidation that has gotten on it from moisture. You can also see it on the screws that are inside the nuts that holds the knob on. You can see rust on it. Another amazing thing is that this cover is on here. I've seen a lot of these at the Hamfest that is missing this cover. That's because these little plastic clips break, and I'm not even going to try to take these off until I can put some penetrating oil on them and let them soak and see if it'll bring this plastic back to life a little bit, because it's very easily to damage. So we're going to pull the cover off of it and have a look inside, and you can see the rust here around this. So it's spending a lot of moisture. I did bring this radio up on the Variac after it sat in here for a while, and it should be good and dried out. So let's pull the covers off and take a look. I removed the covers from the radio, and I want you to look inside the bottom cover, and you can see this brownish tint in the camera. That's a light surface rust. And if you look real closely, you can see that's rust. So it almost looks as if the radio has sat in water. So you know, it's definitely been in moisture, and that will cause a lot of different problems. Another viewer had noticed this turntable I used and was asking about it. And this is just a piece of shelving board. It came with one of those put together style desks that you buy like at Walmart. And this is one that fell apart, and I saved this piece because it was, thought maybe it'd come in handy. But I went to a flea market one day and saw this laying on the ground at a guy's booth, and it's about 12 inches wide and about a 6-inch hole in the middle of it, and it's two pieces. It's probably about a ½ inch thick, and it has ball bearings in it, and it's pretty solid. It doesn't, you know, shake up and down, so it's got some pretty good ball bearings in it. Anyway, when I saw that and knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, I asked the guy how much, and he let me have it for $1. So I couldn't complain there. So I brought it home, mounted it to this piece of shelving board, and had put some rubber feet on it. And that's what my turntable consists of. Okay, I put the radio on the bench and got the covers off, and looking at it, see, I'm not seeing any rust on the chassis at all. So that's a good sign. So possibly it was not sitting in water. So the rust from the chassis was probably just from condensation sitting inside of a building, you know, that's not temperature controlled. So I'm just going to, you know, looking over the radio and looking for anything that's obvious. and you know, you don't see nothing. Everything looks good. I see very little signs of any rework. Whenever you're looking at these, always check under the final tube sockets, and you'll see those resistors there. And you want to check and make sure none of these has been burnt or excessive heat. And these look completely fine. I see nothing wrong. Another spot to always look is take a look at these main filtering capacitors and see if that little center is bulged out. You see that little spot right in the middle between the terminals? And that one is showing a little signs of cracking around it. Anyway, they're going to get pulled out and replaced along with these down here at the bottom. And that should take care of the capacitors. When I replaced the main filter capacitors, these are probably about 2.5 inches tall. I'll go back with these are Rubicon, and they're low profile, and they're good caps, so they'll go back in the top. We'll just need to cover the top of them because there will be high voltage. Speaking of high voltage, if you're playing along at home, there is high voltage here, so if you're getting into it, make sure you do this at your own risk. Always use safety first. Even now, the radio is unplugged. Never open a radio with it plugged in. Never try to work on it with it plugged in. I know sometimes you got to take voltage measurements, so that you need to be very careful. So when one looks inside one of these radios, they think, my gosh, what is all this stuff? Well, it's very, it's pretty simple. This is your power amplifier, PA for short. This is where the bulk of the amount of wattage that the radio put out is set at, and produces all the voltage with the fan. Pulls the heat out. It uses two 6146B tubes. And you have your plate capacitor and your load capacitor, and you'll see there's two coils here with your final coils and your tank circuit and your final RF choke. So y'all got to bear with me. I'm still fighting this cold off, but it's getting better. Anyway, this is your RF board, and here you'll find the pre-selectors. You'll find the driver. This drives the power from the RF board into the final unit. This uses the 12BY7 driver tube. This is your VFO unit. This says your frequencies, mixes with the other frequencies. This is your fixed channel board. If let's say that you had some frequencies like 40 meters, you can plug in, get your 40 meter crystal, plug it in, switch on the front. You can switch it over to one of the 4 crystals you installed, and it would automatically go through that frequency without having to turn around on the VFO. Down here we have our IF board, and you'll see our filters. We've got a single sideband filter and a CW filter. Down beside this is the Vox board. It's for voice operated transmit, and this is your marker board. And this you can flip it on the front and help calibrate the dial to set a frequency. So you can calibrate the dial to 0. So since our radio did work the first time I tried and received, what has happened to it? Why doesn't it receive now? Why doesn't it put out any power? You know, you have to determine what's going on. Well, after we visually looked at the radio and we see no blown components, you know, we checked inside the PA cover and didn't see nothing that was cracked or, you know, any of the coils that come loose from bad solder. So the first thing that we probably need to do is focus our attention on the front panel controls and the band switch. As you can see inside the band switch, you have these multiple wafer switches. And I noticed when I first got it, there's quite a bit of resistance on turning these switches. So probably right off the bat, the first thing we need to do is clean all these switches. So we'll do that. And we'll just spray them one at a time. Move the mode switch back and forth. Well, not the mode, yeah, the band select switch, I'm sorry. And I can already feel that it's freed up a little bit. We'll do the same thing to the VFO control switch. Now the mode switch. Just give that a good cleaning. Now I think we'll remove this cover and check under there. So here in the cover we have our wafer switch, and what this does is changes the taps on the coil for each band. So we need to clean that. We also have a relay in here. Maybe we'll get a look at that relay and see how it looks. You have to work a little fast with this cleaner I'm using. It will evaporate pretty quickly. That switch moves so much freer now. The first thing you want to do is inspect the relay plug-in terminals, and see if I can get a better look at that relay. And you can see we got a little tarnish on those, so we're going to clean those out. Try to get them looking a little better. They have turned just about black. Okay, I got the terminals on the relay all cleaned up, and went ahead and poured the cover off and looked at the contacts, and they were perfect. I didn't see no carbon on them or anything. So remember, do not clean contacts in a relay with sandpaper. Always use some deoxit. If you can take it apart, use a pencil eraser. That'll get all the carbon off of it. So we did just a little simple cleaning. Now we're going to power the radio back up, we'll put the shields back on, and we'll give it a go and see what we find. Okay, so all the covers are back on as far as our shielding. I went ahead and set the radio to upper sideband, 20 meters. The dial set at about 250. The heater switch is off. So we'll power it up. And you can hear there is noise in the background. So let's turn the generator on. All right. So the radio is receiving way down below minus 120 dBm. You can see that on the attenuator. And yes, the spectrum analyzer is still working like a charm. So we have received. Then we'll switch over and we're going to test the transmitter. Alright, so we're now tied into our dummy load. We're still on 20 meters. We have the heater switch on. We'll set the carry up between 7 and 8. Meter switch to IP, upper sideband position. And what we're going to do, we're going to hit send and we're going to check idle current. And we're getting right at 60 milliamps. So that looks good. Now we're going to change our mode switch to tune. We're going to go send and we're going to peak the driver. Okay, driver's peaked out. Now let's go to ALC, still in the tune position. And what we're going to do, we're going to hit send, and this time we're going to go to our plate control and we're going to dip the meter. In other words, we want the meter to show less than more. And it may be pretty tight, but yeah, the meter is dipping right there. Okay, now we'll go to CW. We'll switch over to our RF mode and we're going to peak the load and the plate back and forth for most power out. Load and our plate. Now, I know you can't see the watt meter here, but you can see the meter on the front of the radio. It's going up, and that showed me just over 100 watts. Let's take a peek at the watt meter here, and I'll hit send, and we're showing about 108 watts out. See how spectrum analyzer is receiving the signal. So that looks really great. So what we're going to do now is connect an outside antenna and see if 20 meters is active today. Okay, we'll go back to the upper sideband position. Turn the noise blinker off. You can already see it's receiving something. flow scan TV. I have some weak singles, but I'm having a hard time trying to tune them in. I think I know what's causing that, but I'll share that with you in a moment. Let's switch over to 40 meters. Still might be some morning time activity. I'll switch the antenna over to 40. Peak the drive. Oh yeah, we're gonna put it on lower sideband.
For Georgia, Ron. You probably know where I was born and raised at. A little place called Douglas, Coffee County, Georgia, South Georgia. Thanks. Floyd Giant, Greenville, George Victor, India Lima, QSO. QSO, thanks for Nancy Charlie, Cook. Whiskey 4 Fox Hotel Charlie. Anybody anywhere one time only set big fleas to South Quarters. Come on. 4 Echo. Whiskey right.
Alright, the radio seems to be receiving pretty good on strong singles. It's the weak singles it seems to be having a problem with. And I have worked on so many of these radios, I know what's causing this problem. And I'll see if I can't give you a little demonstration of what the problem is. So inside the VFO housing, we'll have a variable air capacitor. And it'll look something similar to this one. The shaft will come out the front. And then it goes through various mechanisms of gears and, you know, reduction gears for the front knob. And what happens is, as old as these radios are, inside at each end is a bearing. There's little ball bearings in it. And from the factory they install a grease in these ball bearings. What happens over, you know, the radio was made in mid-70s or so. This grease has become old and hard. And it'll actually start losing conductivity where the rotor goes against the chassis. And also on the other side, on the back side of the VFO, you'll see this spring clip, and those contacts become dirty. So it gets a little dirt, you know, that also reduces conductivity. But that grease gets old, and when you're sitting there and you're tuning, and you're trying to tune in a weaker station, you know, weaker stations will take up less bandwidth than a strong single. So you're having to move the rotors, you know, just so slightly. That grease is working against you because it's so hard and so stiff, and it makes it give what's called a wobble effect. And what we need to do is pull out the VFO out of this unit and do a thorough cleaning, wash out the bearings, get all the old grease out, and that should handle that problem. It is a bit of a job because you got to take the whole front panel off, and then you can get this VFO unit out and then take it out of the case and then wash it out. So, you know, it's going to take a couple hours to do that. I'm not going to do that today. I just want to see what it would take just to get this old rig back up and running. So, you know, I think we got a winner here. Could have been a junker to start with, but this radio shows a lot of good potential. It is just going to need a good cleaning and pull all the tubes, clean those sockets. We'll also need to go to these pre-selectors and clean those also. Make sure that the grounding tabs are good and firm. You notice there's a few transistors down here on the board that'll just plug in, so we'll probably unplug them, clean those leads in the socket and put it back in. And, you know, change out the capacitors, give the front a good cleaning. And I think we'll have a great little radio. And I'll do all that in the next video. I don't want to make this one too long. Anyway, that just shows you sometimes you can take these old radios that hasn't been used in years, and see, we replaced no components, but yet we got the radio does work. The only thing we haven't checked is microphone input, but as good as the radio receives, the audio sounds good. The transmitter's now looking good. I'm pretty sure the mic circuit will be fine. If not, we'll have to troubleshoot that. But the next thing to be is just, you know, strip the radio down and do all our maintenance and get that up and going. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I need all the support we can get. So until the next time, we'll see you later. Oh, and I want to mention this one more time. IFR, she's still working perfect. Catch you next time.